Welcome to episode number 47 of the Between Two Brands podcast. It's December, and I am still your host, Bill Petrie, and I'm glad you're here with me. Hard to believe we've almost done a year of these podcasts. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Before we get to today's episode, let's pay the rent, shall we? If you haven't noticed, there's been a ton of change in the promotional products industry the past few years, and it's from big distributor moves to supplier consolidation. Honestly, it's hard to keep up with it all. Frankly, that's why I want to start the podcast today to talk about something we don't talk often enough about in our industry, and that is stability. Now, with all the changes that absolutely happen on a regular basis, it's just as important to talk about the companies that are established, stable, and strong. And that's where our friends Shepenko come in. For over 90 years and four generations of family ownership, Shepenko has genuinely cared about the success of their clients. And that, my friends, is 100% the definition of stability. Another point, they only sell through promotional products distributors. That means they're dedicated to doing more than delivering quality merchandise at a fair price. They go the extra mile to ensure that every distributor project is a resounding success. It's the right way to do business, and that is how you continue to be stable and strong heading into the next 90 years. Now, the bottom line, Shepenko has stood the test of time. To experience, the products and the people, Alex Moltz, Daniel Towns, Dan Towns, the entire Towns family, the entire team at Shepenko are absolutely the best. Head over to shepenko.com today to start your next project. All right. I had a couple things I was going to talk about before I brought on the guest, but I think I'm going to do, I don't know what we're going to call this. I want to start calling this something. So let's try this out for size. Let's call this the opening shot. And so, what I want to talk about today is something I read on Marketing Brew, which is an email newsletter I get every day. And some days I look at it, some days I don't. It really just depends on what grabs my attention, just like the rest of us. But this grabbed my attention, and it sparked the question in my head. Will AI bots end social listening as we know it? Let me get to this. So what this article is sharing is that AI bot networks are growing and weighing in on everything. And we see it all the time in Facebook groups. I've seen it in, most of you know I smoke barbecue as often as possible. And I see these AI driven jumping in, starting conversations in Facebook groups, things like, who likes to smoke with wood? Dumb question. We all do. But there are things like that. I've even seen it in the promotional products professionals Facebook group where asking, what are the top five products you've seen lately? Just very interesting things like that. Well, beyond that, I think we're all starting to realize that with the proliferation of AI, it's really difficult to know what's generated by a machine and what's generated by a human. And here is what this article is sharing. I'm sure you all remember the Cracker Barrel rebranding backlash last summer. It appeared from everything we saw that that backlash was disastrously received by the public. However, research done by intelligence platform Peak Metrics found that the backlash was disproportionately driven by AI bots. And so Cracker Barrel's decision to backtrack after, gosh, what seemed like 2 weeks, it was informed in part by artificial activity. And Peak Metrics also tracked bot attacks targeting American Eagle, Boeing, McDonald's, and the PGA this year. What they found was that automated accounts often amplify organic criticism in an apparent effort to shape public opinion and, in some cases, shift geopolitical narratives about the brands. This really struck me. I think we're all recognizing we live in an age where we don't know what's real and what's not, especially in terms of information being told to us. I remember the Cracker Barrel rebrand. I didn't love it, but it wasn't horrible. It didn't, to me, go against every value that the store grew up with. It was modern, which maybe goes against the brand, but it wasn't this horrific thing that seemed to demand such an uproar. And maybe this kind of explains it a little bit. It's concerning to me that these automated accounts are amplifying whatever organic criticism there is. And it's doing it to drive click. It's all clickbait. So I think the solution, and I'm not sure there is one, but I think there is a solution. Large brands are starting to work with narrative intelligence platforms to help them continue social listening for sure, but conduct brand sentiment studies and run consumer polls to gut check how actual humans are really feeling. But for those of us who don't have a big budget, I'm not sure what we do other than look for the signs to identify the bots. And there's things like, if the account is really, really new, if there's been a disproportionate amount of posting in a very short period of time, something that would be very difficult for a human to do, or usernames with lots of numbers and letters that don't seem to make sense. I don't know. I've been very big on the AI train, and I still am for helping with automated tasks, for making people more efficient. I still think it's a tremendous tool. However, but as AI gets more muddled online, I really do think people are going to come back to trusted resources like verified creators or brand accounts that are verified. I think we're on this precipice now where we are all craving human contact and human interaction to get a sense of what's real. We experienced this right at the end of the pandemic. And I think we're going to experience it again now from a technology standpoint. And I think brands are going to choose that path as well. But I'd like your opinion, if you care to share. What do you think of these AI bots? Is it concerning to you? Do you feel that these AI bots are shaping your public perception? I'll be honest, I think sometimes they are with me, and it's concerning, and it's something I'm going to pay a hell of a lot more attention to. I'm going to pay a hell of a lot more attention to something else right now. Let's pay another bill before we bring on our guest today. Do you know what season it is? Not only is it the holiday season, kids, that's right, it's business valuation season. Maybe you don't know what your company's worth. Perhaps it's been more than a few years since your last valuation, and you need a new benchmark to see if your company is increasing in value. Heck, you might just want to see if it's time to sell your business. Now, regardless of the reason, Jamie Watson and the experts at Certified Marketing Consultants, they have extensive experience in the world of branded merchandise and the financial knowledge necessary to provide a fact-based valuation of your business. All you need to do is email them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, that's enough of my opening shot, at least for now. Let's go ahead and bring on our guest. My guest today really doesn't need an introduction. But it's the holidays. Let's waste some of her time, your time, and my time. She discovered the promotional products industry by accident in the early 1990s and started out as an office manager bookkeeper, and she learned if she could. Then she went to outside sales. In 2009, she began her path as the preeminent regional executive director, beginning with the Carolinas Association, then a year later, the Georgia Association of Promotional Products Professionals. And for 1 year, she worked at the PPA Midwest. Now, she's currently the executive director of the aforementioned Georgia Association of Promotional Products Professionals and VAPPA, the Virginia Association of Promotional Products
Associate.
Association. There you go. All
Association.
right. She's been married to her husband Chris for 40 years. They have two grown kids, as we all do, and they're always your kids. Doesn't matter how old they
Oh,
are.
they're always my
Tori,
babies.
that's right, Tori and Richard, who have two of the most beautiful little girls on the planet. Gardening is one of her passions, and she can't help herself from always trying to identify the flowers and shrubs she sees wherever she goes. But because she's in the promotional products industry, she's always looking at the tags on apparel and caps to see where they came from. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, she's also in charge of that Facebook group we all know and love, the Promotional Products Professionals. Hey, please join me in welcoming my friend, very good friend, the lovely and talented Lisa Bibb. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, let's get right into it.
Let's do
You
it.
said you had a topic you wanted to talk about. So before we ask you five very easy questions, but what
Uh,
do you want to talk about? What is on the mind of Lisa Bibb in December of 2025?
Well, I know that a lot of our members and anybody who's not a member or just in the industry is kind of looking back to see what this year presented to them as far as business opportunities, missed opportunities, and whatever the tariffs are bringing today. Uh, I know it's affected inventory. I know it's affected spending habits of clients and corporations and the government. Um, I know that there are some members in the Virginia Association specifically that have
Yeah.
a lot of their business is wrapped up in government contracts and what's available as far as the spend. And we're all aware that everything went into lockdown. I'm hoping that some of that has loosened up, but I don't know. But I do love hearing what the stories are that's going on out there. If there's anything, whatever I can do to help and make connections,
Yeah.
that's what the association's all about, is trying to bring people together and make those connections and see how we can help each other out.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm looking at it from a different perspective too, because I'm a service provider, right?
Right.
I work with suppliers and distributors. So I work with every facet of our industry. And I'll tell you what I've heard from them. Obviously, uncertainty. That's been the only certainty this year is uncertainty. We have an administration. It doesn't matter where you fall. I think we would all agree that the administration is changing directions at such a rapid pace. Nobody knows what's happening. And if there's one thing, Wall Street, and then you expand that out, anybody who has money to spend, one thing people don't like is uncertainty. And because that has been our reality for the past 10, 12 months, I think people have really kind of kept their hands on their purse strings a little bit, kept them pretty tight. I do think we're at a point where, unfortunately, that this uncertainty has become certainty. And it's gotten to a point where it's been normalized to the point where I think people are getting fatigue and looking to, okay, if we can't get certainty from an economic perspective in terms of policy, in terms of tariffs, things like that, we're going to make our own certainty and we're going to start strategically spending money on advertising, uh, investing in inventory, things like that. If you remember in the beginning of the pandemic, it was this panic. Did I say pandemic? I did. In the beginning of tariff gate, whatever you want to call it, you had suppliers saying, okay, we've got this narrow window and we're going to bring in so much product to make sure we have it. And for the most part, I think that's worked out for suppliers, but man, there's a ton of risk there. And I
Right.
don't think they want that risk. So I think you're going to see a gradual opening of people spending. From a service provider perspective, knock on wood, I haven't had a lot of challenges either maintaining clients in
Mhm.
their advertising spend because that's usually what people cut the first thing when they need to is advertising,
Right.
and that's what I do. So I've been very good with that and haven't lost really any clients for that reason either. So I've been very fortunate there. I think people have been, for more, my opinion, Lisa, more comfortable just kind of treading water than
Mhm.
being overly reactionary and pulling back. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Well, I can see how everybody wanted to bring in so much product early on. That does put a hardship on their cash flow
Sure
for
does.
sure. Um, but as far as, are we going to see this as the new normal? Is this going to be how everybody is
I,
having some
I
trepidation about spending, or are we just going to hang out and kind of see what happens, kind of peek around a corner and wait?
I think, like I said, from my perspective, I think people for the most part have been treading water and trying to maintain everything. I think people get very tired of treading water. You got to start moving at some point,
Right.
one way or the other. And so
Hmm.
I think you're gonna. That's what I think you're gonna see. I love that topic. That's a great topic. I've got some very easy questions for you. Some
Let's
super
do
easy
it.
questions. This is going to be so easy. Easiest thing you've ever done. All right. First question. In the intro you provided me, you mentioned you discovered this industry by accident, and that's kind of what most of us do. You just fall into it. So I have two questions here. How did you fall into this industry? And what did you got in the industry in the early 90s, which seems like a lifetime ago for some people. For me, it just seems like yesterday, and same probably for you too. Yeah. Look, you have hair to tug. I don't. So how did you fall into the industry and what did you experience in the early 90s that someone joining this industry in 2025 couldn't even fathom?
Oh, let's see. I was ready to go back to work after kid number two, and a lady I worked with previously at Pike Nursery. I was the assistant purchasing agent for Pike Nursery back a gazillion years ago.
It
Which
sounds like you were Dwight Schrute to someone else's Michael Scott. You were assistant to the regional manager.
yes, I was. And knew all about plants and red tip patinas. Don't buy a red tip patina. I'm just telling you. Um, I needed a job,
That's
and
by the
she
way,
recommended me.
that's the only value. I mean, that is some of the value we provide here at the Between Two Brands podcast.
Yeah, just
All your horticulture needs.
the little extra something. You never know when that little nugget of knowledge is going to
Absolutely.
come in handy.
I will shut
Um,
up now.
yeah. So I interviewed over the phone. I got the job, and it was not far from my house, which was terrific. And it was the office manager bookkeeper, which I had no idea what I was doing because I was 20. Let's see, Richard was born. I was 25, so I was 26.
Hmm.
And they thought that I could do all this. I knew how to push a button and run a report. That's about as good as it got. And the salespeople were in and out and doing all kinds of fun stuff and having a good time. And on the phone, I'm thinking, I hate this sitting behind a desk and pushing buttons to run reports. So the opportunity presented itself for me to go to work for another distributor company.
Hmm.
And I had no experience in sales, obviously. I was very young. And they handed me, this is going back to what the people today would have no clue what we're talking about, Spectrum catalogs.
Wow.
Remember the little
Okay.
bitty?
I I do. All right. Explain to our listeners what and our viewers what a Spectrum catalog
A
is, Lisa.
Spectrum catalog was provided by, I believe it was ASI,
Hmm.
but it was a miniature conglomeration of all types of different products that was the size of, here we go, a Reader's
Hmm.
Digest, little bitty book.
Hmm.
And I was handed this a box of these that says, "All right, go get them, Tiger. Go get what? What am I doing? What am I supposed to do?"
That that is one hell of a training program.
Oh, it was great. It was great. I'd sit and just look through stuff and go, "What is this? And why does it have this thing on it? It says Coca-Cola, but Coca-Cola
Yeah.
comes in a can or a bottle. What?" So that was my training, my sales training.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you sold for a while, but then after your stint in distributor sales, you became the executive director of camp in
I
what,
did.
2009? 2009?
2009.
What
And that
drew you
was,
to that part of the industry?
well, I had been the president of the Georgia Association in
Okay.
1999, and then again from 2006 until 2008, which shouldn't have happened, but because there was nobody else ready to step in and do what we were doing, I just stuck around and it kind of sucked my business away. But I was very passionate about the association and I saw what
Mhm.
it did and I saw the potential and I wanted to make it work. And so I turned over my entire book of business at that time to my friends Frank and Debbie Nash. And I
Yeah.
said, have fun, uh, do what you can, and I'm moving on. So I completely stepped out of sales to go into the executive director position. That executive director at the Carolinas at that time was ready to move on
Mhm.
to her new thing. So she convinced me that I could do it. And I kept telling her, no, I can't. She said, but you've been doing it for 2 years. So I said,
Yeah.
well, all right. So that was my jumping in. And in fact, I came in December, and their first trade show was 60 days from that date.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow.
So
That's and anybody who's not been on a regional board, And I have been on many. I've even not with never with Lisa, unfortunately, but we've done some things together on regional boards, things like that. But man, that is really a difficult. It's a year in planning these trade shows. When you have 60 days to jump in, that's a lot and a little bit of time.
Yep. But we all survived and learned a lot
Yeah.
and moved on from there and just it got to a place where I was learning something, if not daily, weekly,
Hmm.
how to do my
Hourly.
job, do it better, what needs to get kicked to the curb, and what needs to be addressed and made a
Yeah.
bigger part. And
Yeah.
that was
Let's
fun. It
let's
was actually a lot of
yeah.
fun.
Let's dig a little deeper. So, because I find the executive director position for regional associations a fascinating one. Again, my background, and you know this, some of our viewers and listeners know, but I've been on boards for the last 15 years, regional boards. I was on what used to be the RAC board. I was president of that, so and I enjoy that. But I do have a few questions because you're director of two of the more robust associations, GAP and VAPPA. So with a new board every year, I have a couple questions under this one question. With a new board every year, you essentially have a new group of bosses. How do you navigate that?
Well, very fortunately, I have been around for a really long time, and I know a lot of the people that are coming on, and we have a prior relationship, so it makes it a
Yeah,
little bit
that
a
helps.
softer landing when they come in and
Sure.
start talking about stuff. And it's always an eye-opening process for them when they get on the inside of what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think having new people every year, it always brings fresh perspective. And
And
you
energy, right?
have and energy and ideas, and it's always so helpful for any executive
Yeah.
director to have fresh blood.
Totally agree. Now, but I have found that learning to be on a board is very much an art. For a board to truly be successful, every board member has to put their own personal biases aside. They have to put their own personal gain aside to serve the membership. And that's sometimes very difficult for people. How do you help people transition to that role of servant leader where you make sure they're taking their own selfish interests out of it. Not and people just to be clear, I don't think many people go in there saying, "Good, I can get on a board and steer it towards what I want." But you do have suppliers, distributors, and service providers on a board, and sometimes they can inadvertently say, "Well, I know that's going to benefit me, so that's the way we should go." How do you navigate that or manage that?
Well, first of all, I tell everybody that every board member's vote counts. Your opinion counts. Don't sit back and be
Mhm.
quiet and then
Yeah,
come away from a meeting and think, well, that was terrible. I can't go along with that. Well,
should have
that's
said
what
something.
you do. That's
Yeah,
the
no, I
part of the
agree.
gig. Um, and I also explain that you got to leave your hat at the door.
You do.
You walk in that room, you are an industry professional,
Hmm.
but you are there for a purpose. You're there to make the
Serve the
association
membership.
better. You're not there to for personal gain.
Yeah,
And that, of course, we always read an antitrust statement prior to the
right,
meeting so that everybody understands that you can't sit there. You're not going to talk trash about your competitors. You're not going to
right,
sit around and say, well, I'm going to sell it at this and you should too, or
right.
anything like that. And
Right.
also, another piece of advice that I try to impart on these people is this is a volunteer gig, and
Yep.
your job that pays your bills is absolutely the first thing that you need to consider. Love it
Yeah.
that you're here. Love it that you're going to come to board
Hmm.
meetings with ideas and participate and vote and be on a committee. But when this starts to interfere with your day to day, with your
Yeah.
family, with your job, you can't devote that much time. I mean, seriously, that's kind of what killed my sales business is that I was so passionate about the Georgia Association that I
Hmm.
allowed my paying job to kind of fall to the wayside. But
Yeah,
look at me now.
I completely get that. I think, what people don't realize is that every regional association is volunteer driven, and you're relying on people who they're giving up their time, and there's so much value to that, and it's hard to walk that fine line to make sure that people they're volunteers. If look, you have a paying job, you have families and things like that, while making sure you're propelling the association forward. It's very challenging. Back to your point about the boardroom, and I think it was our mutual friend, the lovely and talented Dana Geiger, who shared this with me when I was struggling when I first started doing board leadership, not just being on a board, but one thing she told me is when I was president of PPAMS that I was a really good board member because I would give my opinion. I might disagree with somebody, might agree with somebody, but once we walked out of that boardroom, I was in alignment. Didn't matter. She said I was great at that. One of the things she told me is that as the president, you need to shut up more and you need to let the entire board have their say. And then
Yep.
if you have something to say, great. If you don't, then call for a vote. And it was some of the best advice I've ever gotten because I know this may shock people. So if you're standing, you may want to sit. I can talk and I have no problem giving my opinion. But it was fabulous advice, and my guess is she probably either has shared that with you or learned it from you because I know you guys are very much in alignment in how you run a board.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes when you are a new leader
Hmm.
and you don't understand that it's really important to listen to everybody
Yeah,
around you in order to come to a conclusion, a decision. It's like I said, everybody has their voice, their vote.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
president, while it's amazing to be in that position, listen to your people, listen to
yeah.
what they have to say. You may not agree, but when the board decides, if it's
The board
against
is
what the president says, the president doesn't have the final word. It's a board
no,
vote. It is a majority
correct.
vote.
It was truly some of the best leadership advice I've ever been given. And so I've always thanked, every time I've had an opportunity to thank Dana for that, I have. So I will do so again. Why should people get involved in their regional association, either as just a volunteer or as a board member?
People don't understand what the board brings. They don't understand necessarily what it means to be more involved. I mean, there's, I mean,
Hmm.
uh, the associations, well, I can't say that. A lot of associations have several hundred members, and not all of them want to be part of the board.
That
They
is
want to
true.
come to the shows, they want to come to the events, they want to take part in the offerings, but to be able to come in and get behind the scenes and see what it takes
Yeah,
and the fulfillment that people get from being it's drinking the Kool-Aid, man. I'm telling you. Once you're in
it
there, you
is.
just start to enjoy
It,
it. You see it, you appreciate it. And being a part of an organization that makes an impact,
that's
not
it.
just in
There
a
you go.
regional promotional association, just anything in your life. You
Yeah.
get what you put in it.
100%. I got involved by accident.
We
Someone
all
asked
do.
me to run. Yeah, absolutely. A happy accident, a joyous accident. I was
Yeah.
asked to run for a seat on the board at PPA Chicago, and this was 2009 or 10. Um, and I won. Well, people didn't know what they were voting for. Um,
What was in your
but
bio, Bill?
I think I said I was the third string. I was drafted in the 12th round of the
Uh-huh. And
draft, and
Edward
I was
Van
third.
Halen was your favorite guy.
You got that right. But no, I remember thinking it was an honor to serve other people, and it really put me on a trajectory of service to this industry. And it's I will tell you, for every hour I've gotten back, for every dollar I've forfeited working on my sales or my business or wherever I was employed at the time, I've gotten it back tenfold. And it is a humbling thing, and When I won the Icon Award for industry service, a couple of distinguished service to the industry, I was as shocked as anybody a couple of years ago. But it just validated everything I believe about giving of one's time. And you said it best. It's impact. We all have a finite period of time on this earth. It's not about how much money you make, it's how you make people feel and the legacy you leave behind. And I think
Mhm.
the older we get, or at least the older I get, the more I think about that. And I'm glad part of my legacy is my weirdly obsessive love for all things Van Halen. But I'm also glad that on some level it's service to this industry. And so I love it. I love regional associations. I think you know that. I still have questions, but I want to take a slightly different direction. Over the past few years, we have seen some associations struggle financially. And from my perspective, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, it's due to the reliance on two things: membership dues and the large trade show, which a lot of people call it's our bake sale every year. I have two questions. How would you like to see the model of regional associations evolve or at least improve? And then I have a second follow-up question that I'll ask at a time of my choosing.
Oh, well, that I'll be on alert for that. Um, uh, the thing about the regional associations is it is about community too.
Mhm.
I
It
can
is
tell you
100%.
from my personal experience, some of the best people and my best friends I've met through the regional associations. And maybe it's because we're all like-minded, because we're drawn to serve
Hmm.
as part of that community. Um, I want to have everybody understand that we as a community want to bring more people into the community.
Hmm.
And if you have events that are associated with your bake sale,
Hmm.
if it is a way to bring your people together, and a lot of associations are starting to do the 40 under 40 or 30 under 30 or the
Hmm.
young professionals. And that is extremely important, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because these people that are coming up now are not necessarily joiners. They
Hmm.
aren't uh, going to look to an association to elevate their business.
Well,
But
yeah, I don't think they're going to look to associations to help them with connections, right? You and I
yeah,
grew up in an era where
we didn't
you
have
wanted
social
to
media.
meet, no, you wanted to meet like-minded people. There, hey, I see that my association's hosting a happy hour at Poor Richard's on Thursday. I'm going to go. They don't have to do that anymore. And
No.
that's not bad or good. It's just an is.
Yeah. Besides doing a social, uh,
Hmm.
I'm not sure, and that this is the challenge for each regional association. What do people want? What are
Yeah.
they looking for? What can we work to provide them that would be meaningful? And I think every board that goes to a strategic planning meeting once a year,
Struggles
that is
with
on
that.
the agenda every year.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a member?
And the real challenge is people will tell you what they want. You'll put that into place. And then when push comes to shove, well, I don't know if I really want to
Right.
go. Which is extremely frustrating. Again, I've sat in those strategic planning meetings. You come up with something that sounds, this is really going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And you get an idea, and then the people gave you the idea. Oh, yeah, I just don't think I make it.
Uh-huh.
Come on. That's why it's so important, I think, to cultivate that volunteerism, because when people start seeing the work and the effort that's put in, it's a lot more difficult. I speak English good. It's more challenging to say no or to come up with reasons not to go. You run two very successful associations, and they are. What advice would you give to those associations that are struggling a little bit?
Uh, I think a lot of mindset is um, maybe a fear to change things up.
I would agree.
You've got to have the intestinal fortitude to really try something. If it's outrageous, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can tell you that for whatever reason, the Georgia shows have been theme based for the
Hmm.
last few years. And from my perspective, it's been a lot of fun. I mean,
Yeah. I was there a couple years ago at the Under the Big Top, right?
yeah, yeah, the greatest show in promo. And
That's it, the Gray Show promo.
we had stilt walking jugglers and balloon
Hmm.
people, and one of our one of our board members dressed up as a ringmaster. But we did have a volunteer stood in the
Hmm.
corner and had a spinning wheel to win prizes, and the clients actually liked it more than the distributors did. So if we can engage the end user to come to the show, I
Yeah.
think that is going to bring more distributors in. I would love to see on a national level
Hmm.
do a little more advertising to uh, the buyers throughout the
Yeah.
world, throughout the country, and see if we can get more buyers to attend the end buyer shows.
Yeah.
I mean, distributors can do what they can do, but if you can start getting the word out and preaching
Yeah.
to the public, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that that's the great advice, by the way. And I think the one thing I would add to that is one thing I'd love boards to look at is regional association boards. Instead of trying to make the trade show better every year, maybe there's a different way. I'm not saying that maybe there's not. Maybe it has to be a trade show, but what else can engage your membership and generate revenue and create excitement? And maybe it is a better trade show, but maybe it is something different. And the other thing I think I would suggest, and I actually suggested this on a board I sat on a few years ago, is change the membership metrics. One of the challenges from a membership perspective, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, is they're company-based memberships. So when somebody purchases a membership for a regional association, it is the company, not the individual. And now there might be a sliding scale that if you have five or more employees, a little bit more, and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. To me, that's completely backwards. My wife is a speech language pathologist in the school district. She is a member of the American Speech and Hearing Association. Okay. Uh, her school does not pay for her membership. Her school is not a member. And when she worked for a private practice, they were not members. Individuals are members. She's responsible for her membership. She's responsible for her fees. And what I think that does is when you shift, first of all, it broadens how much income you can generate from membership.
Right.
But I think it also shifts the mindset of instead of serving the companies, you're serving the actual individuals, which I think maybe might be a better approach. It might not be, but I think it's something worth discussing and exploring.
And I can tell you that from my seat, I don't know all of the distributor companies out there. I don't know all
Yeah.
of the distributor salespeople. What about the inside people? What about the
Yeah,
people that are inputting
absolutely.
orders or following up, or
Yeah.
they
I,
need to
I
have the exposure too, in my opinion.
a- absolutely. I think you could half the price of a membership and triple your membership base and increase your income. But we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah.
I got to talk about something else. I got to shift the conversation. It's my podcast, so for once I get to do what I want. I don't have to ask
Okay.
Kirby. All right. I want to talk about my favorite page on the internet, and no, it is not the Van Halen news desk. It is not a message board about the Texas A&M Aggies. It is the Promotional Products Professionals group on Facebook. Now, you started it all
I
back
did.
in 2012,
8.
and despite some 2008. I'm sorry, I
I believe
apologize.
it was 8.
Look, you're in charge, not me. Uh, but despite some rotten apples, and there are, I think it's been a phenomenal group, helped so many people. It's a great way to bring a sense of community across every business aspect of the industry, large, small, supplier, distributor. It's been phenomenal, and it's got over 15,000 members. So before I even get in any question, thank you for creating it. Thank you for having the foresight to create it. It's been phenomenal.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. It was not actually foresight for me.
That's where you say thank you and you let me
Thank you,
ask the next
Bill.
question. Do not start
Thank you, Bill.
apologizing for something, building something that matters. Why did you start it? What was the original goal?
The original goal was to get the people I knew across the industry together. Uh, when I hit whatever button you hit back in the day to start the group, I sent
Hmm.
out invitations to people I knew that were on Facebook or weren't on Facebook because I thought this is going to be a great way for us to kind of stay in touch. And it'll all
Hmm.
be right there. And if anybody says something, you can comment or, you know, how the family had a great order, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
I don't know what happened from there because it was just going to be
But
me and my pals. But
well, talk about how it's evolved. Talk about how it's evolved.
it has evolved by word of mouth,
Hmm.
totally organic. I don't know, probably 90% of the people that are in the
Hmm.
group. Um, and I don't know how people found it because there were invitations sent out. I put a post up today
Hmm.
about people inviting people that we don't know who they are. But
Hmm.
there are people that are from Australia, New Zealand,
Yeah.
Germany, the UK.
It's
Of course, I
global,
don't know who they
baby. It's
are.
global.
It's freaking global. And how did that happen? I have no idea. But
It,
it has turned into something that is so helpful for so many people that the ways of communicating, even on the weekends. I mean,
hmm.
if somebody is panicked about something and they can put something out there and try
Yeah.
and get assistance from anybody within the states or in their backyard. Um,
Yeah.
but just to be able to out to have brainstorming, to crowdsource, to
Yeah.
whatever they're using it for, it has become something that is bigger than I ever possibly imagined it could be.
It's been great and a great way to connect with people, great place for idea sharing and all that. I think, 95% of what I see on there is positive, is helpful,
Hmm.
is courteous. And that's a pretty amazing percentage given where we're at today when you see things online. But there have been some negative people on there and some negative posts on there. And I know you and Lisa Bennett, who helps you run it, allow me to go off on people when they start,
Keyboard
getting
bullies.
people are bullies and they don't like to be bullied back. And somehow I found my role to be stop, you're being unfair and all that, and that's fine. Without naming names, unless you want to, without naming names, has anyone ever been banned from the group
Oh
and
yeah,
why? Oh yeah, all right. Oh yeah, you're
absolutely.
gonna name names? Oh yeah, you're gonna name names? Or oh yeah,
I'm
people
not
have been
naming
banned.
names, but you know who
Oh,
you are
come
if you're ever
on.
watching this. Um, there's yeah. There have been some people that have just been
Yeah.
awful,
Yeah.
awful human beings, and I have no idea
Hmm.
what they're like in their personal life. But if they are anything like what they have been posting, they just need to run off and live on an island by themselves and have a mirror as their companion.
Yeah.
They didn't take the slap on the wrist, the slap on the face, the
The kick in
frying
the
pan to the
pants.
head.
Yeah.
And yes, they did have to get banned.
Yeah.
And if you
Well,
can't be a professional, this is the professionals page for God's
that's
sakes.
right. Well, you invited them to be professionals elsewhere. And it was an invitation they couldn't refuse. Now, I know the rules have changed over the years. They've had to keep things positive. Now, for example, I've noticed because I do post in there
Mhm.
at least twice a week. You're gracious enough, and it's not advertising for me, but I do post the blogs, all right, because I think they might be interesting to that audience. I post this podcast there again, same thing. But I noticed recently that posts sit in a queue. They are now approved by one of you overlords over there, uh, which is fine, which is fine because I know it's like I'll post it at 8 in the morning on Friday, like this podcast, for example, and it won't go live till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Which again, is thousand. I don't. That's your call. It's your page. I'm there as a guest. I'm not complaining in any way, shape, or form. But how effective have rule changes been supporting the overall goal to keep a positive place for promotional products professionals?
I,
Oh boy, big thinking question.
yeah. The rules have to change because circumstances can change. I mean, some of the basic rules like no politics,
Yeah,
especially with what's happened this year, has been super challenging.
I bet.
Um, the no slamming of suppliers unless
Don't
you're
get me
going to
started
have
on that.
slamming of distributors. That is a
Uh,
double-edged sword, my friends.
It,
That is if you
it,
can't treat your suppliers with respect, then you deserve to get the frying pan upside the head,
it,
right?
and that's where I usually find myself getting involved is when I see suppliers getting slammed with very little basis in fact. It's usually opinion based, and
Yes.
every time I see it happen, and suppliers are named, there's never enough information for anyone to make a reasonable decision on what really happened. And it just drives me nuts because I feel like suppliers, they're handcuffed because if they run to the defense of another supplier, well, they're all in collusion. And of course, they're going to disband a supplier and all that. And I have no problem going in there and saying, hey, have you tried to contact the supplier directly to see if you could resolve this problem? Were you complete in your order? Did you give them an unrealistic enhanced date? Do you
Hmm.
have, I mean, it is clearly a big sticking point with me. In fact, we're recording this Wednesday, December 3rd. I found myself last night in a kerfuffle with somebody, a couple people about a supplier, because it still does happen from time to time.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll keep doing it. I got no problem with that.
And I appreciate you doing that because I do have another job that I have to do.
What?
It's just,
What?
uh,
What?
it's funny. People say, "Oh, how do you keep up with that?" I'm like,
Yeah.
I
You
let
do the best you
the
can.
other members take care of business most of the
Yeah.
time because they're not going to put up with this BS.
No, and I will say you and Lisa Bennett, and I think you have someone else. Doesn't someone else? And who else
It's
is an
just us.
admin there? Okay, you and Lisa Bennett do such a fantastic job, and I mean that. And I'll get notes from you guys from time to time when I decide to insert myself and say things the way I say. You'll say thank you, and it's always very kind. But the best thing about that, you've created something. We talked earlier in the podcast about legacy. You've created something I think that really matters, Lisa. So kudos
Well,
to you,
thank you.
not only on uh, your amazing journey as an executive director. You do such a great job. I've had the honor to work with you many times, and you always do. You're so thorough and such great attention to detail, but also the promotion products professionals page. We joke about it, but it does matter. And so thank you on behalf of a industry for that.
Well, thank you
Hey,
very
before we
much.
go, let's say thanks to our friends over at Shapenco for sponsoring this platinum level promotionally professional podcast. Now, for over 90 years and four generations of family ownership, they have defined stability in the promotional products industry by caring about the success of their distributor partners. You're not going to see anybody slam them on the promotional products
No,
professionals
you
page. I
will
can
not.
guarantee you that. Head over to shapenco.com to start your next project today. Lisa, I can't thank you enough for your years of friendship. First of all, you've always been so supportive of me. Thank you for that. But thank you for coming on the podcast today. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, Bill. I think this has been a lot of fun. It was I can't remember the last time I said Spectrum catalog, but woo!